Hi everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of PrepEasy's Informal MBA chat series. Today we are very excited to bring to you Cass Business School. Situated in the heart of London, UK, Cass offers its students multiple opportunities in the areas of finance, consulting, and entrepreneurship. I'll pass on to Anant to introduce today's panel.
Thank you, Abhinav. We are very delighted to have Varun and Anmol representing Cass on our panel today. Varun is a BTech by qualification and a techie at heart. He founded a travel startup during his college years and also took up multiple internships, which broadened his horizons. For his full-time role, he has been working with Dell as a systems development engineer for the last 3 years. Moving on, our second panelist, Anmol is also an engineer by qualification and a serial entrepreneur at heart. He's founded 2 companies over the last couple of years. For his full-time role, he has been working as a software engineer with Birlasoft. We're delighted to have Varun and Anmol talking to us. Hi, thanks a lot, Varun and Anmol, for joining us for this chat today. We will be starting our interview today with our first section, which is called Pick Your Fit. And maybe, Varun, you could start this one. So UK offers multiple closely linked and very highly competitive, closely contested programs. What was your process and rationale of picking Cass over some of the other programs that UK offers?
So, what I would say is, for my process, one thing I knew from the very start that I wanted to do an MBA because I wanted to move into finance. So, one thing I would say, irrespective of the rankings, definitely rankings matter. But if you'll see one ranking, in FT ranking, Cass is at 50. If you'll check QS, it may be at 60 or 70. So the rankings vary drastically across QS and top MBA, any ranking that you check. So one thing I would say is just first check that if you want to go into finance, check which B school specializes in finance. And Cass is one that is that has a specialization and is well known in the finance sector. So go for those B schools. And that's one thing I would say, especially for people who are trying to go into finance. In the UK, go to a B school which is situated in London until and unless you are going to Cambridge or Oxford, because location also plays a major advantage. So these are the 3-4 things that plays these are the major factors that help you decide that which B school you wanted to go into. So that's why being in London and having such well-known professors like Scott Miller is there. So he's very well known across the UK for M&As, and he's an ex-Goldman. So those kind of professors, if you'll meet those people, you'll learn those kind of those level of things you'll learn. So that's one thing I would say, check which specialization you want to go into, and then check which B school fits that particular specialization for you. So yeah, that's what Cass helped me. Yeah.
It's a great point that you've picked up. You said that you were always clear about the specialization that you wanted to do post MBA, and that really helped you narrow down your options, right? So,
right.
smart pick in that sense. Moving to Anmol. So Anmol, Cass being in London, right, which is one of the biggest hubs for B schools for almost every industry as well, globally, and an entrance to Europe as well. How much of an advantage from a career and networking perspective do you think Cass offers, just because of the fact that it is situated in London?
Definitely, as Varun mentioned, the location plays a very important role. So, so let's talk about we talk about India. Mumbai is the financial capital. So people who wants to get into financial jobs, they would want to be in Mumbai. Same, if you want to work in tech, you have to be in Bangalore. In the same way, if we are in London, we know we have to get into the business world. There's no better place to be than London. If you are in US, New York is the place to be. So, these are the cities that everybody wants to graduate from, and it's easier for you to sort of navigate your networking, your whole career trajectory. If you are in those cities, you have more options. You have more options to network with people, go on coffee chats, go on meetings, go for an interview. And Cass is right at the center of the business world in London, in the business city. It's right at the center. It's 5 minutes across. All the offices of the major headquarters are already there. Of the major companies, headquarters are already there. So it's easy for us to like sort of network with people, go on, reach out. Cass has a very huge alumni base as well. And most of them are in London, because if you're coming to London to study, so you know you'll get to work there in London itself. A lot of people would want to work in London and experience that whole world-class business facilities and all the amenities and that culture, that business culture. So, I mean, location plays a lot of role. I mean, I'd say even if you have a college that's better in ranking or better in structure, but if it's away from London, you miss out on career opportunities or the career networking opportunities. So definitely, location is like a big thing when it comes to shortlisting your B schools.
Very interesting points, Anmol, you made. You spoke about being situated in London offers you the chance to network very well, and you also drew a
Yes.
comparison of the same with India, particularly Bombay and Bangalore, for industries which these two cities are known for. So definitely, I think Cass
Yeah.
has that edge simply because of being located in London. And for our viewers, that is something for you to consider while deciding your school, because being situated in
Right.
the business hub would make your networking efforts relatively easier, if not anything else.
Right.
Interesting
Right.
points.
So one
Uh,
thing also, like I would
yes,
like to
yes.
add to this is like what people think is like, if let's say they got into Warwick or they got into Manchester, so they'll be like, okay, maybe over the weekends we can go to London and then connect. So one thing is like the people you wanted to connect to are already working, so they don't want to spend their weekend on you. And one thing, like if somebody is working, they'll be like, okay, I have a job 9 to 5. Somebody wants to meet me. Let's meet at 5 o'clock after my office. And like they'll finish their office 5 to 5:30. They'll meet you over a coffee chat, and then they'll head towards their home. So this is the usual process that like the people you wanted to meet to, they will take. And if you are in London, then definitely you can say, okay, I have my classes till 4 o'clock. After that, I can come to whichever coffee place you are asking me to be at. But if you are in Manchester, then you'll be like, okay, can we schedule it to maybe Saturday or maybe Wednesday? I don't have classes. And then you'll try to line up 4 or 5 meetings, but everyone is like, okay, 5 o'clock I'll finish my office, and then only like till half an hour I'll spend. Nobody will wait for you that, okay, 5 o'clock I'll finish my office, I'll head towards my home, and then 6 o'clock I'll come back to meet this guy. So those kind of small opportunities you miss upon, and those may, like, you never know, like a small coffee chat can land you a job at JP Morgan or any big institute. So those kind of things are also there, which plays a major advantage, as Anmol also suggested.
Absolutely, Varun. Completely agree with you. And networking is something in these days is one of the most important aspects of a job,
Exactly.
a successful job hunt or a B school application. And we will talk in great detail about the networking strategy. If I could, ask you a question. I think both of you have mentioned finance, but most schools have a certain niche and certain areas of strength. So would it be fair to say that finance is that area of strength for Cass? Or if I could maybe twist the question and ask you in a slightly different way, which are the top 2, 3 career streams that Cass places its MBA students in?
So, like, I would like
Um,
Anmol
uh,
to start on this because he's not going into finance.
Great, please,
yeah,
Anmol.
Yes.
yeah, because I'm not choosing finance as my post MBA goal, so I want to get into consulting. The reason I am going for my MBA is that I want to break into consulting. And if you go check out the FT rankings, uh, Cash is number 2 when it comes to strategy. Uh,
Yeah,
and
right.
strategy is one of the major parts of consulting. If you want to get into consulting, you need to have a grip on strategy related subjects. So Cass is number 2 on FT ranking on strategy, right after Harvard. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but it's definitely obviously they have their own factors to judge a college on the academics and everything. So I know strategy is really great at Cass. So uh, and we all know that since in the finance world in London, Cash is a very big name. We have our own network in London. We have talked to alumni and people who are there in London about Cash. So they all know whoever is in finance knows Cash by name, and and it goes the same for consulting as well. People know about Cash in consulting because it has a great academic line on strategy as well. So these are the two of the better major parts of the Cash academic curriculum, and also Cass is going big on entrepreneurship as well right now. So that's another side I would say that Cass is like betting on right now.
Varun, you probably want to add anything else to it?
So, like I would echo on his thoughts as well, like finance, strategy, and then entrepreneurship, because a lot of startups are coming out of Cass. And like one thing, like I embraced about Cass was like because the startups that are coming out, the B school is still helping them. Like I have seen startups that are from batches of 2015, and the B school is still promoting those startups because they are a part of Cass alumni, and like they have been a part of Cass. So that is one thing that makes you feel that yeah, you will be having a long lasting connection with Cass. It's not like many B schools, like most of the B schools are good at saying, first thing I would say, that yeah, they have long lasting connections with their alumni and everything. But once you see these kind of things, then you realize that okay, which B school actually follows that. So that is one thing I would say, that yeah, Cass is also good at post networking, like post your MBA or MSc, whatever you are doing after that. So Cass helps you there as well.
Just a follow-up question, since you both mentioned entrepreneurship. Is there a center for entrepreneurship where startups are born within Cass? Do they place like a certain center or certain separate space, maybe like an incubator, where
Uh,
they probably fund certain ideas? Is that how it works?
So, like Cass Incubator is definitely there for entrepreneurship, like Idea
Or
Incubator, but like they have a very good focus on VC as well. So they have good connections across VC, like across UK in the VC firm. So I'm not sure if they're having any specific fund for that, and if yes, then what's the value? Like that, I like someone who's interested can do his or her research. But yeah, the VC connections, like I would definitely say if someone is interested in entrepreneurship, should check how many VCs are connected to Cass, because like that definitely plays a role if you're planning to receive a funding or anything.
fantastic. So I think plethora of thoughts coming from both of you. Finance is a clear cut yes. Cass definitely is very very strong on finance, and especially being in London. Uh, Anmol, you mentioned about strategy, and it's very interesting to know that Cass is actually ranked number 2 on FT when it comes to strategy. So definitely very very strong in consulting as well, right? And these are the prima facie the main targets for most B school candidates whenever they are looking at any B school options and the kind of jobs that they have in mind that they want to get post MBA. And then, of course, you both touched upon entrepreneurship, and Varun mentioned about the Cass incubator, where they incubate certain ideas, have very good connections with VCs as well, and even once you've graduated, the school still remains to be in touch with you, and they help you in every possible manner to
Yeah, right.
ensure that your idea grows bigger and takes form into a big company. Great.
Right.
Just moving to the last question from this section, probably Anmol, you can take this one. So we've already touched upon a lot of aspects of Cass and Cass's strengths. What does a typical B school profile look like for Cass? Is there a typical B school profile? Firstly, let me ask you, and if there is, what does it look like for Cass?
Yeah, I mean, usually most colleges have a typical profile. Cass also has one, and that's somewhere around 640, 650 of a GMAT score, uh, around 6 years of experience. That's sort of pointers that we look for in the class profile for Cass. I mean, a 640 or a 650 GMAT score, and typically 6 years of experience. People with 10 plus years of experience are also there in the class. People with like us with 3 or 4 years of experience are also there in the class. But on an average, that's around 640, 650 with 6.5 years of experience. That's the typical typical class profile of Cass.
Great. I think very nicely summarized. And for our viewers, please be mindful that while these are typical and average numbers, these are not milestones that if you achieve this,
Right.
it's a guaranteed seat. All these B schools are looking for a
Yeah, right.
holistic profile. These are just indicative ideas to benchmark against and make your call whether the school is for you or not, or whether you think the current score, the current experience is enough. I think beautiful section. Both of you gave us very good insights, which brings us to our end of first section, Pick Your Fit.
All right, that was a great section. Let's move on to our section 2. That's demystifying the application. Varun, I'm going to start with you here. So, having taken the plunge recently, can you give our viewers a simple summary or download of the overall application for Cass? How many essays are there? If you can just break this down into various components that are involved.
Three things you need to form. That is, one is a resume, a good resume to showcase not your responsibilities, I would say, but your achievements. Like if you worked like I worked as a research engineer, so machine learning and everything was like a day job for me. So I don't need to include that in my resume, but the achievements that I've done throughout my career. So include that in your resume. Quantify your resume that this you did and you were able to achieve this many, like the output was this because of this particular thing. Once you are done, LORs definitely like get the right people to recommend you. Don't get the people like who have some kind of hatred for you and might like give a gist of that in your LORs. So choose the right people for LOR. SOP is one thing I would say, like at least form like 7 to 8 drafts before sending anything. And one recommendation I would give for SOP is like usually, if I remember correctly, Anmol, our Cass SOP was 600 words, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes. Yes.
usually they
Around
have
600. Yeah.
around 600 to 1000 words only they have. So, but you make an SOP, the initial draft with maybe a 2000 word SOP, including everything that you have done. Like whichever things you think are important, include everything. And once you're done with that, like based on whichever B school you are applying to, whichever profile you think will suit you best. Like as Anmol is, if I have done a project in finance, so I've done a few projects in fintech, but if I want to go like for Anmol like profile, he wanted to go into strategy and consulting. So I that fintech projects won't play much of a role. Rather than he has done like he had his startup of own before this. So those kind of things will play a better role for his profile. So just choose what will suit you. And once you're done with SOP, you just need to submit that application. And like for CAS, it was a questionnaire, not like just one SOP you form and send it out. You can take a part from that SOP and some fill in the questionnaire. And once you're done with that, you'll have like for us, one interview was there. So once you're done with the interview, then you will get the decision. And the process is similar across all. Like I gave around 15-20 interviews. So I would say the process was similar for all. Like it's not like they'll vary drastically. The process is usually the same. Like that's my
Yeah,
take
and
on that.
adding on what Varun has to say, like I mean, most of the processes are same. You sent out your resumes and your SOPs. You submit an application, and it's. I guess most of the colleges now don't ask for one essay. They usually have the whole process in breakdown into questionnaires. So they'll ask you what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the experiences that you have in your work life that impacted you the most. Were you in a situation that has resulted in your growth? All that sort of questions in your SOP, they have broken down into small questions about 250 words, and that's how they have break down the whole SOP into different questions. And I mean, the process is, as Varun said, is majorly the same. So for Manchester, we had one recorded interview before having our actual interview.
Yeah.
So that
Like
was there
the
in
interview is also
Manchester.
there.
Yeah, so I mean, but not for CAS. CAS has a fairly simple process. You submit your application, you like pay the fees, and you submit your SOPs, fill that whole questionnaire. And if you're shortlisted, you go for the interview. And I mean, for me, I gave around 10, 12 interviews, around 12 interviews, and CAS was my toughest interview, I would say. They really like grill down whatever you have written in your resume. I mean, they'll grill down you to the point that, so if you are adding some, say, people know that adding entrepreneurship or your something about startups really boost up your CV, right? So it's not really like that. You can't just add anything. You really know what you have done, because they'll grill you down to
Correct.
everything you have written in your resume. And Cash was really the toughest, because my interview was usually the interviews are either taken by the admission people and one of the professors or the faculty, or just by the faculty. So I mean, and they basically shortlist up by your questionnaire. So if Varun has to go into finance, his interview will probably be taken by a professor who's into finance. So my
Yeah.
interview was taken by someone from a strategy side. So I mean, they really drill you down to what you have written. They'll ask you on every point and everything. I mean, so if you have not done anything, please don't add up. Please don't add anything, and just for the sake of adding it, add if you have really done something on that. So that's one thing that I would like to add. Rest the process
Never
is
lie
fairly
on your
simple.
resume.
Yeah, rest the
Very,
process is fairly simple.
very
Yeah.
exhaustive and insightful answer, both Varun and Anmol. If I could probably pick up some points and summarize it for our viewers, I think Varun made a very interesting point. Do not waste unnecessary and unusually high amount of time, researching colleges before you have your GMAT, because GMAT is essentially one of our important criteria. So once you
Yes.
have your GMAT according to what the school asks, you can streamline and shortlist the target colleges to wherever you fit. Other than that, I think both of you spent a great amount of time running us through the essays, running us through the interview process. Anmol mentioned that the Anmol mentioned about the interview panel. It's a combination of faculty and alums, and it is the school tries to align it to your profile. Varun mentioned great points about
Yeah. Right.
CV building. Don't just make it a biodata, and don't just make it a don't put bullets just for the sake of it. You need to show action and result out of each bullet, and that action and result
Yeah.
also
Exactly.
needs to focus and be in sync with what your career goal is, which you're putting in your SOP and essays, because that shows a wholesome picture, and which is what schools are looking for.
Varun, just coming to you, and I think we've already covered the complete application. You've touched upon the essays, the SOP, the letter of recommendation, the GMAT, as well as the interview, and all of these components stay together constitute your overall CAS application. Let me just ask you, like on a different note, some of the traits or characteristics which CAS is looking for in candidates through these essays or SOP. What are some of the top characteristics that the school is interested
So one thing I would say, if you're going for an MBA, one thing like that's of top priority on their list is leadership skills. Because I remember my interview was with Professor Lasfer, Mazneen Lasfer, and he has like very strong hand in finance. He predicted that Facebook IPO price after its launch it will go down, and after seeing those videos, I got a bit scared that he's going to ask me a lot about finance and everything, and I might like lose my calm and everything, and my interview might not go as planned. But like I told him that I have done these particular things in finance, and I want to gain more insight of how things work actually in finance, because I'm from a research background. I don't have like world knowledge of how actually things work in finance. I've just done some few projects. But after that, like he gained all the insights that what I have worked on in finance. But then he asked me questions like how, if these kind of situations come, let's say a conflict of interest comes into picture. You are managing a team of 3 people or 5 people, and a conflict of interest comes, and this is the situation that happened. How will you analyze that particular situations? What will be your take? So one thing is like everything they want, because you're going for a management degree. So to some, like maybe not directly, maybe indirectly, you'll be managing someone, or how you manage yourself also. Like these kind of things plays a part. So leadership is, I would say, is on top. And I would say if you are going for an MBA, leadership skill is one thing that you should have. Like not to a very good extent, but yeah, to some extent you should have a leadership skill. And then again it boils down to your specialization, because generic they'll teach you. If I'm going into finance, they'll teach me good enough about strategy, like the bare minimum that is required. Anmol is going into strategy. He will get to know corporate finance one. So he definitely has to study basics of accounting. He must know. So those things will be covered by B schools. So I would say, like from my take, the only two things that they look for is, one thing is the specialization that you are going forward to, like what's your knowledge level in that particular specialization, and what are your leadership.
Great. I think I completely
Um,
agree with. Sorry, Anmol, you have something to add?
yeah, go ahead, Anand.
I
No,
was
go
just
ahead,
saying,
Anand.
I think Varun made a very interesting point. Leadership is something that is expected of a incoming MBA, because ultimately, after doing a top-notch MBA program, one is expected to quickly go get onto that fast-track leadership role and lead teams, and which is why the idea of looking for leaders comes from. Great. So this brings us to end of our section 2, which was demystifying the application.
Let's move on to the next one. Our next section is words of wisdom. And in this section, we basically ask both of you to give top 2-3 suggestions to our prospects out there who are interested in CAS. Let me start with Anmol this time. Anmol, your top 2-3 suggestions for people applying to CAS.
People applying for CAS is that don't really fake on your resume, because I mean they really grill you down in your interview, and they'll see if you have done it, and it's, you can't really fake from them. They'll know if you're faking it or if you have actually done it. So I mean that's one thing I would say. Also, I'd say if you have something on the lines of entrepreneurship or something you have done on your own, they really look at the initiative side of your application. They see what kind of a people management you have done, what kind of leadership roles you have done, and I mean if you have some sort of entrepreneurship ability, you have started something on your own, you have your own initiatives, they really look towards that as a very big plus point. I mean, that's something that played out for me, because I have two startups under my belt. I have like co-founded two startups, and I have to justify that what kind of work that I've done and what were the necessities that I started both these startups. So that kind of really outshined in my profile, and I was with an okay GMAT score, even with an okay GMAT score and just the bare minimum work experience, I was able to make it to CAS. So I mean, I'd say that they really see towards how initiative you are. So that's my words of wisdom for people out there.
Great, Anmol. Thanks a lot for your words of wisdom. Varun, would you want to share something from your side?
So one thing is similar, like if you have any experience entrepreneurial, if you have failed at it, make sure you show the learnings. Like if you took a big initiative, like Anmol had did two startups. So if they are well off right now, good enough. But if they are not, then make sure that you show that what you have learned out of it, because that also plays a positive part. That because everyone knows that people fail. So if you can show that yeah you have learned something out of it and you are using it, as specifically I would say do your research. Make sure CAS is the right fit for you. Don't just go by ranking. If you want to go into maybe ESG or anything, you might get a better B school. So make sure like CAS is the right fit for you. Like it works both ways. It's a marriage kind of thing. So CAS should be the right fit for you, and you should be the right fit for CAS. So when you're doing your research, make sure the B school is right for you.
Absolutely, I think I agree with you. A lot of people fail to appreciate the importance of deciding the fit for them. Just because a school is top ranked or just because a school is not
Yeah, exactly.
ranked amongst the top doesn't mean it's a good. It's not a good school or it's a great school. It is a very subjective
Correct.
thing. Ultimately, you need to decide based on your career goals and based on what you want to be in life, and if the school can help you bridge that gap. So Varun, very good point on that. And just if I could summarize the tips that both of you mentioned, please do not fake it. The people there who are assessing you, who are interviewing you, it's their job. They've been doing this for a good number of years. So please appreciate and respect their intelligence. Do not try to fake it. And a very important point that Varun made, even if
Yeah,
you
right.
failed at some step, the idea is to show the learnings that have emerged. Failure doesn't mean you haven't learned. Each
Yeah,
step that you
right.
fail at also teaches you something, and these schools are appreciative of that. So please try to bring those paths. This has been a great session. Abhinav, do you have something to add to that?
No, just Thank you, Varun and Mol, for being here with us. The overall session has been very, very insightful. You guys have given some very elaborate, comprehensive answers throughout the session, throughout the sections, and I really hope that our viewers make the most out of it.